This my seat?
That's your seat.
All right.
That's where you sit.
Moving on up.
You just like the Jefferson. Start calling you George.
George can dance.
Well, that's okay. You can
I
just
do appreciate that.
What's these for?
right. Somebody gave it to us. I had no idea.
Insurance, huh?
Good Lord, Steve. Good gosh.
What is this?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Merrillville Town Council meeting for today, Tuesday, December 13th at 6:30 p.m. Please stand for our invocation and remain standing afterwards for a moment of silence.
Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we bow before your presence tonight, understanding and recognizing that you are the God, the Lord, the creator of our universe. And Father, you've entrusted to these men and women in this room a great task. Father, we pray for wisdom and for understanding and guidance. And Father, we just reach out to you for those kind of things that will bless this community. We thank you for how you have blessed this community, the protection you provide. But our prayers yet are, Father, for those who are hurting, those tonight who are in tears and misunderstandings. So, Father, we bow before you, but we say thank you for the protection that you provide for those who serve and protect us. So again, Father, we come before you to say thank you and the blessings we have in Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Commissioner Ward, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Mr. President.
United States of America,
And to
the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, I almost forgot the words. It's been so long.
What? Maybe.
Madam Clerk Treasurer, could you take the roll call, please?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Mr. Span?
Present.
Mr. Hardaway? Mr. Benchuk?
Here.
Mrs. Uzelak?
Here.
Mr. Pettit?
Here.
Mr. White?
Here.
Mr. Bella?
Here.
All present.
All members present, thank you. Moving on to petitions, communications, acknowledgements, and remonstrations. We received a letter about the Community Crossing Matching Grant Fund Program. It's from Eric Holcomb, Indiana Governor, and Michael Smith, the INDOT Commission. It says, Dear Rick Bella, the Indiana Department of Transportation has completed the review and selection of projects for funding in the 22-2 Community Crossings Matching Grant Fund Program. Your community has preliminarily been awarded $738,253 in Community Crossing Matching Grant Funds based upon your estimates from your project application. INDOT will be transmitting an award letter in the coming weeks. The Community Crossing Matching Grant Funds, which are administered by INDOT, will be issued for funding up to 50% of the construction of your project or the purchase of materials. These grant dollars will enable you to help build and improve Indiana's infrastructure. The state of Indiana looks forward to partnering with all Hoosier communities, both urban and rural, to invest in road and bridge infrastructure projects. Improvement to local roads and bridges will bring about economic development, create jobs, and strengthen local transportation networks for all of Indiana. Signed sincerely, Eric Holcomb, Indiana Governor, and Michael Smith, INDOT Commission. And Steve, do you want to talk about the projects that we're going to be doing with our matching grant fund?
Yes, sir. So our projects for 2023 for our community crossing grant are going to be the Broadway frontage roads on the south side of Route 30 from roughly 83rd Avenue to 91st Avenue will be paved. We'll be doing both sides, so those will be done. Desperately needed. Also, 86th Avenue, we're going to be doing from Merrillville Road to the end. It ends there, at the end of the subdivision. It's, you know, it's a long road, about, you know, it's over a mile long. So, that's the other one we're doing. So with that and our matching funds, we're gonna be doing, $1.476 million worth of work.
That's great.
With the money.
Thank you, Steve.
Question.
Mr. Span?
Yeah, we were supposed to get some work done on West 63rd there, Steve. You got anything to say about it?
West 63rd.
Yeah, you did place, 63rd place,
Yeah.
and you're supposed to come around and do West
Well,
63rd.
this is separate from, this is a grant we got from NDOT.
What's that got to do with my question, son?
Well, because yours is funded through a local project. This is
But you can't,
NDOT.
you can't answer the question? You're in charge of streets, and you can't answer the question? Is that what you're saying?
So what, so
I'm
six,
asking about West 63rd Avenue, you know.
So paving is done for this year, Don, so there won't be any other streets done this year. Yeah.
I guess I'm confused
Program's
because
done.
you wanted those other ones done and we got those done.
I'm not a other or nothing, man. My name is Mr. Span to you, partner. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I get what you're saying.
Let's move on, Mr. Span. We'll talk about it some more.
All right.
Steve, let's keep the floor and talk about your next item, which is the letter from Engineering Administrator about the BFS.
So we got a grant through the DNR for our C&O Trail project, Phase 3. Butler, Fairman, and Seifert will be doing the construction inspection for this project in an amount not to exceed $154,000. Jake is here in the audience. If we have any questions regarding that, Jake, you want to come up?
Good evening, Jake Damerall with Butler, Fairman, and Seifert. If you have any questions at all, I'll be happy to try to answer those. Just as Steve noted, this is C&O Trail Phase 3, which goes from approximately State Road 55 to the Merrillville's western town limit. This is funded 80% through the DNR grant. The town has received approximately $1.5 million in state grant funds for the construction and also part of the construction inspection, for which this agreement is in front of you this evening for this specific project.
Steve, do you need any action from us tonight?
No, we did it
We're good, right?
through the RDC, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on tonight to the consent agenda. We have the accounts payable register voucher approval for December 13th and the approval of the town council meeting minutes of November 22nd.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mr. Hardaway for approval of the consent agenda. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The record show 1 nay. Motion carries.
Mr. President, it says it's 1 nay.
Did you vote nay?
No, I say aye.
Correct the record, that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving on to standing and special committees tonight, Budget and Finance, Mr. Hardaway.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am pleased to announce tonight that our budget was approved by the Department of Local Government and Finance. Our general fund budget was approved for $11,243,851, and our total budget was approved for $46,500,000. And as well as we awarded 2 more ARP grants last night, one for business and one for residential. And so far this year, we have awarded $118,000, and we've paid out $78,000. So people are still applying, and we're still approving. So that concludes my report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Hardaway. Moving on to Council Affairs, Mr. Pettit.
Mr. President, in my absence last night, we did have a committee meeting. I would defer to Joe and Pat for any quick updates. I don't see any ordinances on the agenda, Joe.
Pat, you want to handle this, or should I?
Thank you, Mr. Svetnoff. The committee met last night, and we reviewed 5 ordinances that we had discussed at a previous committee meeting, and those 5 were accepted. We expect to present those 5 with quite possibly an additional 5 for consideration to the council at the December 27th meeting. The anticipation is that by the end of January of 2023, these ordinances will be presented for consideration to the council.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Reardon. Again, I was absent with my mom in South Bend on a medical procedure, so I'll get with Joe and Pat to review those ordinances, and then we'll get those ready, Mr. President.
Sure, sounds good. Public Works and Utilities, Mr. Minchuk.
All I have right now is the obvious. We all know it's getting colder and snow coming, so please be courteous to our snowplow drivers. Once the snow does start coming down, please get your cars in the driveway. With that, that's all I have. I believe Mr. Hardaway has something.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. President,
Mr. Hardaway.
I sent a letter to the mayor of Gary, and I'll just read you a portion of what I sent to him. And it says that for all the years that I have been a town council member, the residents of subdivisions Merrillville, Meadowland have experienced health problems and financial hardship due to the connection of the sanitary district sanitary sewers in the form of sewage backing up into their homes during wet weather. I receive several complaints from GSD customers every time there's a substantial rain. According to an engineering analysis, the sewers were sized to only handle sewage, but due to leaking sewers, leaking manholes, that total flow into these sewers exceeds the capacity of the sewers, resulting in sewage backing up into the homes. Federal and state laws in the city of Gary's sewers use ordinance prohibited clean water from being discharged into the district's separate sanitary sewer system. As an entity with the responsibility for properly operating and maintaining the sewers, the Gary Sanitary District is responsible for enforcing that prohibition of and otherwise operating and maintaining its sanitary sewers so that sewage does not come back up into connected homes. Over 19 years, I and other representatives of the town have repeatedly asked the management of Gary Sanitary District under several administrations to fulfill this responsibility to properly operate its sewer system to no avail. Although we have been told that the district has done extensive investigation into sources of the inflow and infiltration of clean water into its sewers, we have not been provided any assurances by the district that it is going to take necessary steps to remedy the problem. Therefore, the homeowners continue to suffer sewage backup into their homes. While it is an option, our preference is not to have or ask the state or federal regulators to intercede addressing the failure of Gary Sanitary District to properly operate and maintain this sewer system in Merrillville. But to bring this directly to your attention so that you will consider taking appropriate action to investigate the matter to determine what the Gary Sanitary District should do to stop the sewage from backing up into the customers' homes. We've been fighting this for a lot of years, and I guess I'm at the point now, looks like state, federal government's gonna be my next step. If I don't get something in January from Mayor Prince, then I'll take it to the next level. I'm not dealing with this anymore. Residents deserve it. When I had my community meeting, people were complaining then about raw sewage backing up into their homes. not going to accept it anymore. It's got to stop.
Well, free feel to use the expertise of our town attorney, as you.
I will, he's my next conversation.
Mr. President?
Thank you.
Mr.
That's
White.
all I have, Mr. President.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Richard's letter here. You said you've been dealing with this for 19 years?
Right.
Okay, you're way behind schedule. But what I do want to say is that I think most of the time, because it just doesn't happen in your area, it happens in a lot of areas of Merrillville. That's why they have what they call those backflow preventers. Those backflow preventers prevent sewage from backing up. Now, that doesn't mean that the sanitary district shouldn't take care of their problem. I'm just saying that I think at one time, stormwater was even paying for some of the backflow preventers.
IHCD did, not stormwater.
Okay. So, no, I used to work at the Gary Sanitary District, so I understand the fundamentals, and I've been hearing about it for years. I just think that if you have some data that you can give me, because I'm sure it's happening now. I'm not saying it doesn't.
Mr. White, I hear everything that you're saying. What I'm saying is this, is that residents shouldn't have to buy backflow valves in order to keep raw sewage from going into their basements. Gary Sanitary District, the city of Gary got $81 million in ARP money. What are they going to do with that money?
I have no idea.
I understand you used to work for them and all of that. My comment is, if I don't hear something from Mayor Prince, he'll hear something from the feds.
That's it, Mr. President.
Thank you. Moving on tonight to elections, public relations, and town beautification, Mr. Pettit.
No report, Mr. President.
Environmental affairs, Mr. White.
Yes, Mr. President, I have been going over some bylaws, actually in the terms of what environmental affairs as a committee is supposed to do for the town here, and what I seen basically was more or less design retention ponds and maintain retention ponds. That's in the bylaws, and it's also in the ordinance. So if they want to make an amendment of that ordinance for it to include things like COVID data, then I won't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it now. I'm just saying, I just want to make sure that we're in compliance with our own ordinances.
Sure.
Yes, and that's what I seen in the ordinance.
Joe, could we review that? And with the addition now of stormwater resources, some things probably need to be changed. Okay. You know, because we don't need to be doing
So,
some of that.
in the meantime, what I will say is that I did look at the CDC. The CDC now is saying that we're not going to give you all this information about how many hospital beds in use or how many people died from this. It just says that you have a low, medium, and high, and it did increase from a low to a medium. From what I've been hearing out in the community, a lot of people are sick these days, and it's all not COVID, actually. So there's a flu thing going around, and there's also some kind of respiratory situation that's out there. So I'm almost saying we need to wear masks here again. So I'll look at the data for another 30 days or so and see if we need to put the mask specifically in our building here, because I think a lot of council persons here have already had COVID. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Personnel policy and employee benefits, Mr. Hardaway.
No report.
Public safety, Mr. Minchuk.
Yes, I have a few items. Our next public safety meeting will have an executive session next Tuesday at 4 p.m. The entire council is invited and encouraged to attend. We have a lot of business to go over at that point in time from our last workshop to finish up. I know a lot of council members had questions and wanted preliminary charts and things, so please bring your questions, and if you have any requests prior to the meeting, please make those requests now. There is a thread, email thread you can post on. Moving forward, as we know, several months ago, we had a letter from our current police chief for his retirement, which would be effective January 1st. At this point in time, I went ahead, submitted a letter to the entire council on my recommendation. We talked about it in our last workshop, and it was agreed on that we will go ahead at this time and make our current Assistant Chief Nucis. We will make him interim chief effective January 1st. The interim chief will last for 6 months. Once that 6-month period is over, then we will go ahead and start the normal process as we usually do. I know he will do a good job, and I'm sure he'll put us in a good place. So that is my motion.
Second.
You have a motion by Mr. Minchuk to appoint Costa Nuzis, our Assistant Chief, to the positions of interim police chief on January 1st, 2023, for a 6-month period. And I'm sorry, who was the second? Mr. Hardaway? Mr. Pettit? Mr. White?
We'll give it to Sean. He's on the other side of the room.
Okay.
I figured you had heard my voice, Mr. Bella.
I normally do, Sean, believe me. Everybody does.
Crown Point does.
Yeah, good.
Is there any discussion on the motion?
I just want
Would you like to say something?
Mr. President, I would just like to say thank you, and I appreciate you guys giving me a chance to show you what we can do, and I'm not going to let anybody down.
Oh,
We haven't voted yet.
That was a victory speech, right?
Mr. President, before you call for the vote, I just want to make it clear that as interim chief, you will have all the same duties, responsibilities, and privileges as the regular chief.
So Commissioner Ward, would you take that back to the police commissioners, that he's being appointed as the interim chief with full rights and benefits as the police chief? That way there's no miscommunication anywhere. Thank you. Madam Clerk Treasurer, roll call, please.
Certainly. Mr. Span,
Yes.
Mr. Hardaway,
Yep.
Mr. Minchuk,
Yes.
Ms. Uzelak. Yes. Mr. Pettit,
Yes.
Mr. White,
Aye.
and Mr. Bella.
Aye.
7 in favor.
7 in favor. Now you can thank us.
Congratulations, Steve.
Anything else, Mr. Minchuk?
Just congratulations to our new interim chief. And then, please, all council, next Tuesday, I would like to see the entire council there at 4 PM here. Thank you.
Thank you. Parks and Recreation, Mrs. Uzelak.
Yes, I made a call to
What happened to
Torrance
economic development?
regarding that small building on Rosenbaum Park. You were supposed to look into the roof. It had to be repaired. I don't know if you took bids or what, Torrance. What's going on with that?
Good evening. We had already had bids and different invoices to fix that particular roof coming into this year in April. What we are currently doing is going back and seeking another new bid to make sure if there's any inflation or anything like that is all accounted for, and then finding out how long that bid will stay in terms of that pricing for that. So once we have those three things, we'll be able to present and go from there.
Very good. Thank you, Torrance. And that's all, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Uzelak.
Mr. President.
Mr. White.
Yeah, I just, if it's possible, I'd like to go back to the public safety, because I did have something I wanted to say on that.
Please.
Okay. I talked to Costa earlier today because I seen a situation last night where I seen things with my own eyes, specifically at IHOP. Went in there, nobody there. All the coffee pots and everything's on, fryers and everything. So I called Merrillville Police Department, and the officers showed up immediately. But what I got a chance to really see, Mr. President, was the fact that what Costa's been saying the entire time, there's a real shortage of these guys out there because, and they have what they call the hot potatoes, for a better lack of words. They were there like 5 minutes before they was off on another one, and it was like sirens blaring and lights flashing. So I just want to say we have to find a way, because one of the young police officer ladies that was there, she was on overtime. So there's a huge shortage out there. I'm just saying there has to be a way that we can get more officers out there on the streets. So that would be something that I'd like to take back to the Public Safety Committee to see. We have to do something.
Mr. White, when you say there was no one there, do you mean there was no employees?
Not a single employee.
The doors are open?
The doors were wide open. I walked in there, and the police chief admonished me last night because I called him. He admonished me, say, never, ever, when you go into that situation, go around there and thinking that you might want to look around to see if everybody's okay. He says.
So did the police check to make sure there wasn't employees?
Right, yes.
Locked in a cooler? Or
right, that's what he said to me. He
passed
said,
out?
well, you open that bathroom door, it could have been somebody that already had
Right.
hostages. So he told me, don't ever do that. So hopefully I don't ever go back to IHOP. Because not only that, it was nasty. It was totally, and the reason I'm saying it's public safety is that we need a health inspector. That place was terrible.
Well, the county, of course,
County
does
does
that, but yeah.
County does that. Board of Health, County.
We shouldn't probably,
Shouldn't say that.
Oh, yeah, that's my statement. I'm not, ashamed of saying one. I want to make sure people understand, because that was not the first time I had a situation there, but last night was kind of like the bad part about it. Thanks, that's
that's
it.
really odd. Thank you
Yep.
for sharing that.
Mhm.
Abandoned and blighted properties, Mr. Hardaway.
No report, Mr. President.
Adina Barbara White Community Center.
Yes, Mr. President, we had a meeting last week. Sat down with Torrance and Barb and Sapana and Keisha, looking at some numbers, the revenue projections of what the center is bringing in, what the expenses are. We're going to have another meeting on the 22nd at, I believe it's 4, Torrance? Give me just a second, Mr. President. I wrote, no, it's at noon on the 29th.
Yes, the 20th.
Noon on the 29th at the center to continue discussions. Mr. Minchuk brought us up to speed that the bleachers have been installed at the Weiss Family Field. The sidewalks and things on the south end, all the improvements have been done in what we're calling Phase 1. Jeff, have you had a chance to look into Phase 2 with Goff?
No, I'm gonna get on that here very shortly.
Okay.
They are aware of it. They're kind of looking at it, but I'm giving them a little.
And that's for the benefit of the council. That's taking the additional land we have north of the paved parking lot with the possibility of putting in slag excess parking when Pop Warner has their games on Saturdays and Sundays. That being said, Torrance, do you have anything else schedule-wise that we need to be aware of? What's coming up? I know we had boys and girls out there on Thursday, which was another huge success. And Rich, I know you're on an advisory council to Matt Galeros and Boys and Girls Club. Another outstanding job taking care of the kids in the community.
Yeah, this past Thursday, we had their Christmas celebration. That was an all-day event where we closed down the center, and it took the entire building to pull that off, so we're very grateful to host that. This past weekend, we had another Forever Card Show. So Chris Chelios was in town for the Blackhawks. Rick Russell, who pitched for the Cubs, he was here. Dennis Oilcan Boyd, who was a Red Sox pitcher, he was here. Bob Lilly, former defensive tackle of the Cowboys, was here, and Spud Webb was here this past weekend. So we had a great turnout for that event. Also, we're hosting tournaments. We're booking things up, getting ready to start up really quick. Even next year, right when we come from the break, we have tournaments right away that are happening and going on. And focus on not just those small things in the center, but our special events for the entire year next year. We've already put in work to prepare for our Black History Month program for the month of February. So we have a lot of the smaller details, things together. We will put together a couple other big things there and formalize a program here really soon so we can advertise that, market that, make sure enough people get out to participate in that, and also start sending out meeting invitations for all the other events that we have going on throughout the year for 23.
Mr. President?
Mr. White.
Yeah, when you start planning for Black History Month, make sure I'm in part of that loop, because that's something we tried to do last year. It didn't happen, but I want to make sure that we do an outreach, a better outreach this time, and make sure I'm part of that loop when you do that.
Yeah, that's why we're doing it now. So
Secondly,
getting ahead.
Everybody loves a community center, including me. But here's what I don't love. I don't like deficits. And I don't know where they're at right now. I do know we looked at something pretty close to how much salaries were, pretty close to $1 million. How much our revenue came in, I think it was like a couple $100. So is there a way that you can tell us right now how much we're going to be in the hole by the end of the year?
Well, I will first start off with this. You don't like deficits. I don't like being reactive. So I've been proactive with the entire council for an entire year, since October 27th of 2021. So I've been consistently providing information in terms of where we're at, what's going on, what's happening. So a lot of it from this current year is that you're still learning what it takes to operate a center like that. Whenever you do something for the first time, you don't always know everything. The two biggest expenses we have going on is our personnel and NIPSCO, which that makes the most sense. So where the negative is going to come into is our general fund. And that mainly accounts for all the salaries and wages of the particular center of what's going on. So from an updated standpoint, in terms of revenue, I gave you one projection.
Yeah.
But we are over $300,000 for the year in terms of revenue that we have generated from the center. That's a good first step for us. Now, what we've been working on, what we're talking about is how do we manage our salaries, our wages from that situation and that, because that's where you get most of your deficit from.
Sure.
Because it takes people to run stuff, and we're not just responsible, it's where the key comes in. We're not just responsible for the community center. I'm responsible for 24 parks.
No, Terrence, I just want to let you know, I didn't mean to give the impression that you weren't, you were causing a problem.
I'm just giving you the information
Yes.
and give you the broad.
'Cause I think you're doing a good job, and you're working with what you have. But I just want to make sure that going into next year, we were talking this time next year, that we won't have the same problem. That's all.
Well,
I'm saying.
here's the thing. There's ways to project that. A lot of that's going to be how the first 3 months go. I can tell you by February exactly where we're going to be because our average for payroll has been consistent for the past few months. So we know what that number is. What we don't know is always the projection of what the revenue number is going to be. And that's where, to get into the head, that's where putting the events and things out there, that's where a program getting prepared, we can see what the intake is going to be starting off, and we can do a projection from there. But as long as you have your payroll and those type of things there, we'll get there. We're making strides, we'll get there.
Keep in mind, too, Leonard, as we talked about, and you were at the committee meeting, and I brought this up, and I asked staff about this. We modified the fee structure there. We increased the fee structure there, and I had asked Torrance and the staff to, based on the old fee structure, you're going to bring in $300,000 this year, which is great. Based on the new fee structure, what would we have brought in if we would have passed that ordinance back in February? Remember that discussion?
I'm not
Yes,
sure. I can't remember back to February, to be honest with you.
No, this was at the committee meeting, Leonard. I had that specific, and I made that specific instruction to the staff.
February?
No, the committee meeting we had 2 weeks ago,
Oh,
or
I
a
thought
week
you
ago.
said February.
No.
But
He's going to generate $300,000. We have a $500,000 gift. That's $800,000.
So what I'll be able to do is provide you more detailed data on the 29th, Councilman. With that data, I'll add a lot of different things. I will add those numbers, as Councilman mentioned, in terms of projections, what fees, but it's always going to be based off of who's using the building, what time they're using the building, and what is the revenue generated from the time they are there.
Okay, thank you. That's it, Mr. President.
Mr. President, if I may, could I quickly go back economic development?
Sure.
Because we have a petitioner in the audience. We are going to be considering a tax abatement petition in one of the resolutions later on in the agenda. The Economic Development Committee met at 5:45, and then the Redevelopment Commission met at 6 o'clock. RDC passed the resolution to award a 10-year tax abatement to 86th Place LLC for 4 buildings on 86th Place between the 2 new buildings on Mississippi and the First Image Laundry facility. This will be a additional $3 million investment in our community, and we'll talk about that during the resolution with Mr. Bartley.
Thank you. Moving on to special projects, Mr. Hardaway.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Reardon, can you tell me how many applications we got for the house contest?
13.
Don't have to, 13? Oh, well, thank you. All right. I am going to extend the deadline to
Okay.
Friday
Okay,
so that hopefully we'll get some more as I ride through. I know as I ride through the north end, I see a lot of homes that are decorated. So we just need to kind of like knock on people's doors and ask them to fill out an application.
yeah, actually, there aren't any applicants from Ward 2.
There aren't any? See, I'll take care of that.
I know you will.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for that. All right, secondly, to kind of like piggyback off of what Torrance said, Leonard, that Black History banquet falls under this committee, and we will be, I'm going to let the community center kind of like spearhead it and oversee it. You're welcome to attend any meeting that we have. It's going to be a dinner. It's going to be February the 17th So, and they're finalizing the plans now. Once they get the plans finalized, then they will come back and we'll call a committee meeting. We're only going to have one meeting to talk about this.
Yeah, Richard, I just wanted to make sure, we didn't get.
You're welcome to come to any.
Right, yeah, I'm aware of that.
We always send them out.
I'm just saying, that as a black person, I want to make sure that when you.
I wouldn't care if it was purple, Leonard.
Well, but
You're
it's
still
Black
welcome
History
to come.
Month. It's
That's all.
Black History Month, okay? So I'm not going to be purple, okay?
So I'm just saying that it's not about race, it's about,
No,
it's
I'm
about,
not-
it's
it's
about
about our culture.
maintaining the integrity of the community.
Our culture.
It's about.
Part of my
it's about-
culture.
Okay. And also, I'm going to be looking for volunteers for 2 different events, Juneteenth and National Night Out. Those are the only 2. Everything else, the fireworks and the 4th of July parade will fall under the umbrella of the community center. And they'll spearhead those endeavors. And therefore, if they need outside help, they can let me know.
Okay. And then, Mr. Hardaway, I believe the contract with the school corporation is being reviewed now.
Okay.
With them?
Yeah,
Right, Joe?
that's it. That is, Mr. Swetnoff, you have that, right?
Yeah, I had and I forwarded on to their corporation counsel.
Okay, so.
We should get that back shortly.
So, yeah, so we're ready to go there, and that's all I have.
Mr. President?
Mr. White?
Yes, I just wanted to add to what Richard was saying, because I'm going through our bylaws and things of that nature, and it's pretty much saying whoever is the chairman of the Election and Public Relations Committee is over the town parade. So I don't know if we got to amend that particular ordinance as well?
Well, we can take a look at that, but what we did is formed a special committee to take care of these important events.
Right.
Which is the special committee that Mr. Hardaway chairs.
Right.
So,
So
yeah,
what I'm asking is, do we need to amend that ordinance? Because it is an ordinance.
we'll have Mr. Svetnoff take a look.
What I would suggest, Mr. President, through Mr. Reardon and Mr. Svetnoff, we're going to be doing a comprehensive master plan. Part of that is going to include a new zoning ordinance and subdivision control ordinance. And at that time, under council affairs, Joe, maybe the committee just needs to, a lot of the stuff is probably outdated. Look at those dates at the bottom, Leonard, or go through that thing.
Sure.
They were probably done in 72. They might have been done in the mid-70s. Some of the land uses and the permitted uses on Sheila and the zoning ordinance probably don't apply any longer as well. So once we get into this comprehensive plan, the Council Affairs Committee probably ought to dive into some of that stuff.
Sure. And here's why I'm saying that, because.
And one other thing, Leonard, I think, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds, okay? But I think one of the things, we've got the map up here, one of the things in the town code are the districts, and they are described by legal descriptions. So that's going to have to be amended. Again, this committee structure that Leonard's speaking of, the zoning ordinance, the subdivision control ordinance. We're doing some other things in council affairs with nuisances, different things. So, I don't know, I defer to Joe and Pat on how to handle that, but that's probably something comprehensive that's going to have to be done next year.
And I appreciate that. The only thing I'm saying is that when we have current ordinances that we have not amended, then we need to make sure that we are in compliance with our own ordinances. That's all I'm saying, because if we tell these people out here that we're going to come by your house and give you a ticket because you got too many weeds in front of your house, and that's part of the town ordinance, then how can we look on the backside and say, well, our ordinance says we should be doing this, and it's not happening? So I just wanted to make sure. I have it right here.
Great,
Okay,
thanks.
that's it.
Mr. White, I'll let you keep the floor and give us a report on the Lake County Solid Waste Management District.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had a special meeting last Thursday because we finally got a quorum, and it was well attended at that particular. And basically what we did, we was trying to get past to pass the budget for 2023. And that did happen. Additionally, they were talking about the compost facility that the town of, the county operates. I did have some questions on that, because I think that when you're doing composting, you're never supposed to mechanically break things down. You're supposed to biologically break things down. And I think that with that, it cost us $40,000 to come in there and bring some guy in just to crunch some leaves up. I thought that was like, well, that don't sound right to me. So I did make that statement, and hopefully they'll have somebody competent enough out there to do some real composting, which maybe they will.
And what is the total budget figure, Leonard, do you remember?
It was I think it was 3.7 million. And that 3.7 million actually includes the recycling grants
Yeah,
that they give.
comes back to us, yeah.
Yes. They also talked about the paying back their portion of the lawsuit for the overassessments. They did say who was responsible for it, but I won't say it on the floor here. Who was responsible for overassessing the area. But the solid waste district is going to end up paying back like $85,000 or something along that nature. That's it. Thank you.
Northern Indiana Regional Planning Commission, Mr. Hardaway.
Thank you, Mr. President. I gave Mr. Reardon some information, and he had the information on broadband. There's money out there now, and so we're going to start looking at possibly getting a grant, Pat?
That's correct.
So that we can get broadband to areas out, like in the Panhandle, in areas such as that are right now broadband deficient.
Yep.
So we're looking into that, and next month, they will announce the slate of officers for 2023.
Great.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Reardon, do you have any report for Mr. Lake, who I believe his birthday is today, isn't it?
Today's his birthday, yeah.
Outside of the fact that he's been working his traditional very hard, attending town meetings, of course, stormwater meetings. No formal report.
Thank you. Mr. Reardon, keep the floor and talk to us about the the South Shore Visitors and Convention Authority.
We have a board meeting on Thursday, an executive session, followed by a board meeting. I will continue to supplement your emails. We just got a new circular from the president about activities this month. I hope that you have an opportunity to read it. It's full of some pretty good information. We're sharing that not only with you, but also with the department heads, with the recommendation to share it with your family and friends.
Thank you. Fire Territory Board, our representatives are Mr. Minchuk and Mr. Span. Any report, gentlemen?
We have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow at 3:30.
Oh, okay.
Oh, man.
Department head reports. Torrance, anything else to add from Parks?
No, we'll have a holiday schedule in terms of when our openings will be, and we're looking forward to 2023.
How's our inflatables doing now up on Broadway? Sure looks nice.
Santa got a great health plan, and he's doing real good.
He's back, huh? Boy,
Stronger than ever.
That wind was tough on him. All right. Costa, anything else to add from the police department?
No formal reports tonight.
Mr. King, did he depart for the night?
Yes, he has.
Okay, anything else to add, Pat?
I want to just commend everybody involved with the staff Christmas party today. Something that perhaps the town had before, but brought back at the urging of several council members. Mr. Hardaway leading that charge. And this earlier today, and if you smell barbecue, earlier today, this room was filled with town employees, and we enjoyed some camaraderie and food. And again, it was nice to see everybody kick back and relax a bit. And a special thanks to the staff members that were involved. Brenda from Public Works, Linda, of course, from Town Administration, Erica and Joanna from Economic Development, and really everybody jumped in and helped clean up. So I think it was a good event.
Great. I understand you won an award, Mr. Reardon, is that right?
Yeah, he didn't mention, he got the ugly sweater
Yeah,
award
I
because it
did.
wasn't a Christmas sweater.
And where's the
I'm
sweater?
still protesting.
You don't have to put it on. But
No, the sweater was put out of its misery.
I think before the meeting ends, you should get your sweater.
Well,
I think that we should just like let it rest
Okay.
now.
Yeah,
It's a sore spot.
Ugly sweater, wow.
More of a commander.
Yeah.
Looked like a general,
Hey,
didn't you,
it-
Rich?
Like Sergeant
It was an inappropriate sweater, Sean, for Christmas.
No, it's a
That's why-
holiday sweater.
But to echo
Yeah.
Mr. Reardon, Mr. President, it was a great turnout. When I got here, the room was full.
Yeah.
We had plenty of food. Nobody left hungry. So, and I think all of the employees appreciated it. You know, they shut down offices just so that they could attend. And it was good turnout.
Was. Every department was represented and hung around. They just didn't come in and grab some food and head out.
That's good.
Yep, it was.
Thank you. Moving on tonight to general orders, we have ordinance 22-28. It's an ordinance of the town of Merrillville authorizing additional appropriations in various funds for the 2022 budget.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mr. Hardaway for approval of 22-28. Trista, anything to add? There's some big numbers here.
Sure, I can explain if you'd like. In talking with the clerk treasurer's bookkeeper, having also followed the financials, of course, of the town throughout the year, as we get toward December, there are always some cleanup type things to do, and I really would call this ordinance one of those. We have known, however, council, when I say we, has known from the beginning of the year that specifically running down our list here, that the court department in the general fund may need some additional appropriation based on their budget and their spending through the year. I don't think we need to rehash the details of all of that, but this now, as the council had promised, is finishing up the end of the year for the projected expenses from them. You see most of it is salary related or contractual service related. And this still, as a value, keeps it within the range over the last few years of what has been spent along the way. The line listed also in the general fund for Department Number 7, Town Administration, is to make some adjustments as necessary for the police gasoline line. Again, an item that the council has known since the summer, really, for sure, if not a little bit before that, due to increased prices, that the original amount budgeted would need some supplement, which is what this is. The general fund does have the available cash at the $200,000 listed in cash balance. Of course, we'd like to not use that if possible, but sometimes it is needed. We are hopeful that both the bookkeeper and myself, that as the year draws to a close, there will be other unspent monies that kind of help offset this 200, and so your total cash balance really probably will not be reduced by the 200 that's listed here, but this is the best way, bookkeeping-wise, to address it at this time for council's approval. The next two.
Oh, go ahead.
The next two in your list there, the American Rescue Plan and the Community Center Fund, I apologize for that. I thought we had done this prior to my leave. That unfortunately ended up a little bit more extended than I thought it was going to. But again, this just is housekeeping to finish up for the end of the year. We have received now the second tranche, the second half of the ARP money. So these funds now can be shown in the books for the appropriation lines. That large amount in the middle, the over 3 million, is simply that holding line until additional plans are made for the rest of the expenditures. The Community Center Gift Fund appropriation is the last transfer from the endowment that was brought over. That money is sitting in the balance of the fund, and so this additional appropriation is allowable under those calculations to use that transfer. The last then item, the public safety gadget, if this is purely an emergency backstop for you, my thought was, since the additional appropriation is before you anyway, if by chance there was some extra need within the police department, be it gasoline or something different that comes up at the end, the Lowett Fund, because of the supplemental amount that is received in May, has some additional cash. And if you needed it as a safety net here at the end of the year, this would be in place for you. I fully expect that you won't need it. Again, it's just a safety net in case.
Madam Clerk Treasurer, anything to add?
No, I think she covered it pretty well.
Very good. Any other questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, Madam Clerk Treasurer, roll call, please.
Sure. Mr. Span?
Yes.
Mr. Hardaway?
Yep.
Mr. Minchuk?
Yes.
Mrs. Uzelak,
Yes.
Mr. Pettit,
Yes.
Mr. White,
Aye.
and Mr. Bello.
Yes.
7 in favor.
7-0, motion carries. Moving on to ordinance 22-29 this evening. It's an ordinance of the town of Merrillville setting the salaries for the calendar year of 2023 for all town employees.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hardaway with a second by Mr. Pettit for approval of 22-29, the salary ordinance. Questions or comments?
Mr. President,
Kelly?
I did call you earlier. I do have some printouts that I can give you guys. There are some, and I'm sure it's just an oversight because I know the council wouldn't want to reduce any employees' salaries, especially now since the consumer index is up 9% and inflation is higher than it's been in a decade since COVID. We had a long, hard-fought battle back in August and September, and finally, the ordinance, the salary ordinance was adjusted and amended in October to reflect the increases for the salaries for my office, for some key employees that I had hired last year when the council created the new departments and 4 employees were removed from my office. The council approved that salary ordinance. There was concern at that time that the council was going to provide a across-the-board raise for employees starting in 2023. I said at that time that my employees, if the council would just go on and amend the salary ordinance to reflect the money that I was taking out from what was going to be approved for my increase and given to my employees, that my employees would waive the 2% increase that the council has so generously given to, or it's giving to its employees here at the town. So I think maybe perhaps that just got forgotten about when doing this, because if you would look at the paperwork that I've passed out, did you get a copy?
Mm-hmm.
The ordinance that's currently in effect and what they're currently being paid and what the 2% raise increase would be on the proposed salary ordinance now is actually, what we're currently being paid is actually less than what that would be. It's just where the payments go. So I'm asking to adjust this back to the current salary ordinance that is already currently in effect, and we will not take a 2% increase if we do that. The money is already in my budget. In fact, it's a little bit less than what the current salary or the salary ordinance that you're proposing today would be.
So you're going to have to move funds around to cover the difference?
It's already covered. Yeah, did you get the copy of the?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you look here.
So what I'd suggest, instead of turning this into a workshop tonight, I told Kelly earlier that I'd like to just approve the ordinance as it is tonight, and then we have on second reading, we can talk about this and tweak it for the second reading on the 27th, I believe.
My motion's good.
My second is for just a question, though, Mr. President, if I could.
Discussion, go ahead, sure.
I guess it begs the question, because we list in the ordinance that we're amending the different ordinances, Kelly. And I guess it begs the question, we did agree, and we voted on it. Who prepared 2229? That's the question. Why is there an error in your section, the clerk treasurer?
The Budget and Finance Committee with Trista, the Budget and Finance Committee instructed Trista how to do it. So we just did a 2% for all the employees.
Right.
But they didn't do the 2% on the current
The
salary.
alternate that we approved for you.
Right.
They just went through and did a 2% all the way up and down this ordinance.
Based upon the previous salary
had
that they
to
were
have.
getting. No, it's not. If you look, did they?
No, we went back to the original salaries, Mr. Pettit, because when we did the raise for the clerk treasurer's office, we notated it was only for the remainder of this year.
But the handout that Kelly gave us in the first column, it says a 2% raise, and it lists all the numbers. Those are exactly what's in 2229, and she's saying ordinance 2221 should be 57,951 in that column, right, Kelly?
Correct.
Correct.
So again, it begs the question, who prepared 2229 without knowing this middle column for Kelly that we took the action on? I'm splitting hairs.
So I
It
just.
doesn't matter.
Just to explain so that this doesn't turn into a fight, because it doesn't have to be.
No, we already approved it.
It was already
It's-
approved. And the concern before that Mr. Bella has stated on the record, before you guys approved it, was the concern was whether or not I was going to have the money in 2023 to give these salaries. That was a concern.
We beat this dead horse already.
We
in my
did.
opinion.
And so,
In fact, Mr. President, I'd ask Rich to amend his motion. Let's just insert Kelly's middle column and be done with it
Well,
and do it on second reading.
When we have second reading, Sean, I want to instruct Trista now.
All right.
To make the adjustments, and so when we come in for the second reading, then it'll be correct.
All right.
And we'll be,
I
everybody
didn't
will be
want
happy.
to, yeah.
All right.
Call for the vote, Mr. President.
and just want to put on the record that my employees, if they continue to get what they're getting now, are waiving the 2% increase that the town is giving to the other employees.
It's your office, yeah.
As long as they continue to make what they make,
Okay.
currently making. Okay.
Any other discussion on the ordinance? Madam Clerk, Trista, anything to add?
I would, if I could, just very briefly, just simply draw to your attention that you'll notice the salary ordinance is down to 4 pages instead of 5.
Yep.
President Bella had asked a year ago already about a way to try to make it a little bit more efficient. And so I did go through, compared to the recently passed personnel policy manual, took out what was redundant so that the personnel policy stands and speaks for itself, reduce any potential confusion that could occur. And then Appendix A, your 4th piece of paper, are all of the items that had been in the salary ordinance previously that are specific to the police department. In case in the future there's any adjustment to police department policies with your contracts, so on and so forth, you could simply make an amendment to the appendix, not have to necessarily adjust the rest of the ordinance. And ideally, if you so choose, all of these appendix things really could be put into either the contract that is done each year or the personnel policy as well, further reducing the paper and the amount of information in the salary ordinance. So
Yeah, this
that's
already looks much better,
where it's
Trista,
different.
thank you. Just having 2 pages.
I have a question.
Sure.
Trista, when you were doing the report or whatever, did you take into consideration the 2% that the clerk treasurer's staff, that they did not take? The 2%.
So when I was asked to prepare the ordinance, I was asked to go to the salaries across the board prior to the recent raises that the clerk's treasurer's office was given in October, I think, and apply the 2% raise then to all of them. And so the values you see listed here are back to that amount previous to those raises with the 2% added.
Yeah, we treated the other raises as a temporary raise just through the end of this year, and that's where the change happened, so.
So in
Did that
effect,
answer your
it would have been
question?
reducing my employees' salaries,
Right.
correct?
Whatever the net effect is, wasn't paying attention to that. I was doing as I was asked to do.
I just wanted to be clear. I wanted to be clear for everyone, so everybody can understand why I'm objecting to the ordinance as it stands, because it in effect takes away money from my employees that they are currently getting. And I've got the money in my budget. We've already beat this dead horse, like Sean said before. And I know the concern before was whether or not I had the money. Not asking for any additional appropriations or any additional money from the town. It's within my budget. And we're not asking for an additional 2% on top of the current salary they're getting now. Just
So they
let it stay
definitely
flat.
refused the 2% raise.
Right, and that was my agreement when I asked you guys to approve the increases before, is that I said, they don't have to take the 2%. I want to give them these increases. I have it in my budget, and I believe they deserve it based upon, their work, their experience, and their education.
Any other discussion?
No, thank you.
Madam Clerk Treasurer, roll call, please.
Mr. Span?
Yes.
Mr. Hardaway?
Yep.
Mr. Benchuk?
Yes.
Mrs. Uzelak?
No at this time.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Abstain.
Mr. Bella?
Yes.
That is 1 abstention, 1 no, and 5 yeses.
Motion carries. Thank you, Kelly. Moving on to ordinance 22-30, ordinance adjusting and establishing fees for credit card usage. Business license, $5 per charge, hazmat material license, $5, and alarm fees, $2.50.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mr. Minchuk for approval of ordinance 22-30, establishing credit card usage fees. Madam Clerk Treasurer, anything to add?
No, we needed to do this because we have to pay the fee. The fee hits us. We were trying to make sure that it was, that we brought our office into the 21st century, and we make sure that it was going to be convenient for companies. We found during COVID that it was really important for us to have other mechanisms by which people could pay other than just check and cash and
other
money
cities in
order.
town
So,
do it.
yeah, and so it's necessary, and people, have gotten used to doing this. Even in some businesses, they charge a fee if you use a credit card.
Any other discussion about the council? Hearing none, roll call, please. That's you, Kelly.
Okay. Mr. Span?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was distracted.
We're voting.
Voting on the credit card fees.
Yeah.
Mr. Hardaway?
Yep.
Mr. Minchuk?
Yes.
Mrs. Uzelak?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. White?
Yes.
And Mr. Bell?
Yes.
7 in favor.
7 ayes and motion carries. Moving on tonight to ordinance 22-31, an ordinance establishing and amending legislative body districts pursuant to the requirements of Indiana Code 36-5-2-4.1 by amending code section 2-17 of the Merrillville Town Code and ordinance number 12-73. Mr. Pettit, this is what you kind of referred to earlier. This is the adjusting the ward
Right.
boundary districts. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Are we looking for a discussion before the motion?
We don't do discussion until there's a motion on the floor.
I'll second for discussion, Mr. President.
So we have a motion by Mr. Hardaway, second by Mr. Pettit. We're now open for discussion. Mr. White.
Yes, Mr. President, thank you. I'm a little irritated with the way you guys handle this redistricting, because 2 people I know wasn't there when you guys drew the maps and things, or when you had the maps drawn. One was myself, and another was Don Span. If we're all council people here, we all supposed to look at these things. I don't want you to do stuff like this again, where 2 days before the weekend, shoot us with this information, and then it's ready to be voted on within 2, 3, or 4 days, because you don't give people time, especially the community, time to understand what's going on. I guarantee you they probably don't understand now what body districts mean. I'm not saying anybody's ignorant. I asked Pat about this earlier today.
Well, we discussed this at the workshop that you were at.
And you told me, Mr. President, you said, call the lady, and that's what I did.
Right, okay.
And when I called her, I like to read into record what she told me. She says, beginning in August this year, we began this time with cities contacting them, monitoring what was happening, and assisting them if they desire. However, we did not contact towns because I was under, and this is Kelsey Kaufman, I was under the mistaken impression that all towns had residential districts and not electoral districts. She should have known these things if she's been doing it for 13 years. It took us a few days to follow up and a few more to figure out which towns had single-member districts, which ones had residential districts. Merrillville became one of our highest priority as it is the largest town in Indiana. Thus, on December 1st, I left messages for Council President Bella and Town Manager Pat Reardon, neither one who I knew, telling them that they needed to redistrict. Rick called me back and we spoke for a long time. Initially, he was skeptical about the need to redistrict, but I explained the statute and the dangers of not redistricting, including making the town vulnerable to a lawsuit, especially since your population deviation was a whopping 66%. If you don't redistrict by the 31st and someone sues the council, you will lose, and plaintiffs might have the right to draw the district themselves, something I'm sure you would not want to, something I'm sure you won't like to avoid. When I started to end the conversation with good luck, Rick replied, "Is that all you're going to offer us?" I laughed and says, "Well, we thought we draw maps free of charge for any local government that want them, And it's getting pretty late for towns of your size to be doing, especially this, when we're racing to finish maps from other municipalities. The next day, Rick emailed a follow-up question, and he asked me on that Friday to let me know what's happening and sent all you guys' address. Over the weekend, my son, who I don't know this guy, I don't know none of these people. They're all invisible people to me, who was a high school physics teacher and a whiz at drawing maps, created maps for 3 cities. Now, what he did, he drew 5 maps. Your person wasn't in that map. But what you asked her to do is that you said, could you, he emailed us thank, and he mentioned that there was a candidate who was already running for Ward 7C. She lived in precinct 29, which maps 2, 4, and 5, and also I think also maps 1 and 3 would be part of a different ward. That means she couldn't be there. You can't do favors for people. I'm running for re-election. If you're not in the census block, then you just can't ask people, Rick, to tweak it so your candidate can get back in because your candidate was out. I told Rick, he asked me if I could tweak this one of the maps so that precinct 29 could remain Ward 7. If they put her out at the first 5 maps, then why you want to put her in on the 6th map? I told Rick that I had some misgivings about doing this because there might be other candidates who were interested in running, and the election would be best run by, but was assured that no other candidates had already declared. Nobody can declare until January 4th, according to the election board. You can't declare. I can tell you I'm running for something, but to put it on record.
They haven't set the date yet, Leonard.
Yeah, they have.
I just bought my books,
I'm
and
gonna let you know.
Michelle said they haven't set the date yet.
Michelle got talked to last night. She said January the 4th. That's what I understood. So you can't, even if it was January the 1st, you can't do it a previous year and make a declaration, and you can't do it until it's legally to get in. So I'm saying that in that sense is that she said her son created another map that night and sent it on Tuesday morning. And that map turned out to be controversial, and in retrospect, especially at this late date, I would have not done it. So she knows she made a mistake. You made her think it was okay, Rick. You assured her. Can I finish? You assured her that there was a declaration out there. You assured her that she was.
Well, there is, though. Someone has announced they have a website, they've had a fundraiser.
Right.
I would do that no matter where that person lived. And in fact,
Yes.
I told her where you lived and where Sean lived and Mark lived,
Absolutely.
all of us.
And that's how she.
Because it's not popular to put people that are running for office in the same district. That happened to me. I'm the only one who could say that.
Yeah.
And it happened to me 10 years ago.
But you were talking about 2 councilmen. I'm the only councilman in Ward
Right.
7.
Right.
So when you ask an individual.
I was trying to be fair and equitable
You think this
to
fair?
everybody involved. Well, I do.
Well, because here's the thing, Rick.
Because if we didn't do anything, it would still be the same way.
Well, then you got to look at your guy here. I'm sorry, Pat, but Pat already took the hit. This stuff should have been done back in the summer. We're waiting till the last 2 or 3 weeks in the month.
Leonard, this was not a big deal. We adjusted a few things. I mean,
Well,
it's
it is a
not,
big
you
deal.
know.
Because if we make room for, say, for instance, if somebody else want to run against a Don Spann or Richard Hardaway, but they were moved out of it, then why don't we move those guys back in so they can run against those individuals? You just can't do it for one individual. So that lady was absolutely right. She said she would have not done it. I don't know that lady. Do you know her?
I just know her that she does a good job and she works throughout the state of Indiana
Right.
doing these maps.
And
so-
I believe she does a good job, but I believe also what she told you, that she had misgivings about it. That means that you kind of like, tweaked it a little bit for somebody that has a person on this council who is their relative. I don't think that's fair. So when you're looking at fairness, me and you go along.
They also said that the last map done was the most productive map
I don't
of
have
all
that.
of them.
I don't have that one,
Well, you can call her and ask her.
and I don't think it's on there. Is that map number 6?
That's 6A.
Okay, where's 5? And 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Those didn't have as concise wards as this map shows, which was the goal.
But you asked her to do that, though, right?
To do what?
You asked her to
No,
change
this
the map.
is how it's done.
So if it was
Right.
if it was like that, she said it's controversial, and she said in retrospect, especially at this late date, I would have not done it. So here's what I'm going to say.
Okay.
She did it, but at the same time, just like Richard said, he sent a letter to the city of Gary, I sent a letter today to the United States, to the Indiana Attorney General, because I
Okay.
think there's some funny stuff going on here.
Okay.
Because you
You
shouldn't
think
have
this
did
is
that.
funny stuff? This isn't.
Well, I'm not laughing about it, I'm just
This isn't
trying
funny
to
stuff.
say that you're cheating, that's all. Thank you, that's it.
So this is what you also said too, Leonard, which you didn't read. The final thought, no one likes redistricting, which is one of the reasons why officials so often avoid it or do it improperly. It can create great discord and confusion, especially in small communities. But it is absolutely fundamental to representative government, which is why my team and I devoted so much of the past 13 years without pay to ensuring that local governments in Indiana fulfill this obligation. From landmark Supreme Court cases such as Baker versus Carr to equally momentous legislative achievements such as Voting Rights Act of 1965, this nation has asserted and reasserted the fundamental democratic principle of one person, one vote. Each citizen's vote must be given as close to equal weight as every other citizen's vote. The further a community's electoral system is from the ideal of one person, one vote, the greater it is violation of that foundational principle. Put in local terms, if one member of the Merrillville Council has thousands more constituents than another member, as is true now, then you do not have electoral or representational equality. The new map was done to get a nice average of population per district. Mr. White, your ward was half the size of mine in population. And so your ward and my ward were the two wards used to figure out the deviation rate, which is why you even redistrict to begin with.
I think what you said also was that the candidate had declared, and that candidate hadn't declared.
By declared, I meant has gone public with, I'm declaring I'm going to run for office. You're talking about signing a legal form at the county.
Right, well, here's
Okay,
what, here's what I'm also.
I declared too that I'm running for reelection.
Well, everybody know
already.
that, I mean, it was in the newspaper, you know. It was-
Yeah, well, that's declaring, isn't it? I've declared it.
Yeah, you can declare, just like I can tell him, I declare. But at the same
Well,
time,
that was,
it's
that was
not,
my point, and that's,
it's not legal. You told, here's why that lady made that change, Rick, because you told her that she had already declared. And there was an assurance, like it was already legal what you had.
no, she knows that, Leonard. She knows how to,
Well, this is the way I get it. So I have a copy here for those that want to see it.
okay,
That's
all right.
that's part of my discussion.
So to explain the precinct changes for redistricting, Ward 1 increased population from 4721 to 5304 by adding in precinct 30 and removing precinct 18. New precincts for Ward 1 will be 1, 2, 22, and 30. That changes the population to 5304. Ward 2 removes precinct 19, placing that in Ward 7, while adding precinct 18, removing that lower population precinct from Ward 1. New precincts are 9, 10, 11, and 18. The total population would be 5140. Ward 3, there was no need to make any changes in this ward, and the precincts will remain the same at 4, 8, 15, and 23, for a population total of 5224. Ward 4, there was a need to add to this ward to assist in helping lower the population in Ward 5, the heaviest populated ward. Part of Precinct 3, the northern portion, will be added to this ward. A smaller precinct, 30, will be moved to Ward 1. Precincts in Ward 4 will be 16, 21, and part of Precinct 3. In Ward 5, Precinct 2 will be moved to Ward 1 to lower the Ward 5 population while increasing Ward 1's population. Ward 5 also loses part of Precinct 3, a northern portion to Ward 4. Precincts will be 13, 33, 34, and the southern portion of Precinct 3 for a total population of 5321. Ward 6, this ward will pick up part of Precinct 7 to increase the population number. Precinct 7 will split Ward 7, will be split with Ward 7, sorry. Precincts are now 5, 12, and the eastern portion of Precinct 7 for a total population of 5185. Ward 7, there was a need to increase population totals in this ward. It will pick up Precinct 19 from Ward 2 while losing part of Precinct 7, which was a much lower populated precinct, sharing that with Ward 6. Precincts will be 19, 28, 29, and part of 7. The total population, 5,061. To determine the population deviation, we took the highest populated ward, which still is Ward 5, minus the lowest populated ward, which is still Ward 7, and then divide that total by the average population figure of all wards. The math looks like 5321 minus 5,061, which equals 260, divided by the average of 5206, which equals a 4.99% deviation rate. We will go from the worst in the state of Indiana to probably one of the best.
I don't have any evidence that what you're saying, Rick, that we're gonna go from the worst to the best.
Yeah, well, that's
And
the
if,
numbers.
and if we didn't do it, you've been president for the past 3 years, that falls on you. You put us all at risk, man. That falls on you. That's your job, since it's kind of your job, and you fought against the redistricting, according to the map. But that's your job to make sure that this thing
And I
gets
did, here it is. We're getting it
in a
done.
timely manner. You've had this information since 2021.
Okay.
We're at the end of 2022.
Mr. President,
Mr. Minchuk.
we're starting to hear repeat discussion, call for the vote.
Mr. President,
Mr. White. you were
I wasn't
finished.
done. I had the floor.
Well, I thought you were finished.
I didn't say thank you.
Go ahead,
But go
finish.
ahead. Go ahead, take your vote, because you benefited from it yourself.
Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk Treasurer. Roll call.
Mr. Span?
There's no public comment on it, Mr.
No, not on our first reading ordinance.
Okay.
Mr. Span?
Pass.
That's
Mr. Hardaway?
Yes.
Mr. Minchuk?
Yes.
Mrs. Uzelak?
Yes.
Mr. Pettit?
Yes.
Mr. White?
No.
Mr. Bella?
Yes.
Mr. Span?
No?
2 noes, 5 yeses.
Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to second reading ordinances, we have ordinance 22-27, ordinance of the Town of Merrillville authorizing additional appropriations in the 2022 Casino Gaming Fund and 2022 Wheel Tax Revenue Fund.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mr. Hardaway. Any discussion on the ordinance? Trista?
If I may give you a quick statement, please, about why the amendment occurred. I thought Mr. King would be here to answer your questions, but if you have some, I'll do the best I can based on my conversation with him. You'll recall that you had this ordinance before you a few weeks back. The amounts that you have in the amended ordinance now are more in line with what Mr. King reasonably believes, not that it was reasonable before, but I guess maybe realistically, in looking at the bills for the rest of the year, what he really will need. He does have cash balance to support both of these requests. The clerk's office has some bills already presented to them. He had hoped that this ordinance would pass the first time, and then it, as you know, was tabled. The bookkeeper's holding those. I've spoken with her. She does agree that these amounts as well will rectify the matters that Mr. King was trying to rectify to start with, and cover the remaining bills that he has.
Excuse me,
For the rest of the
Mr.
year.
King ain't here. You speaking for him?
Yes, I explained earlier.
No. Are you speaking for Mr. King?
I'm really,
I understand what you're doing.
I'm relating to the conversation I had with him, yes.
Anything else, Trista?
No.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, this is a second reading ordinance. I'll open it up for public comment. Is there any public comment on this particular ordinance, 22-27, additional appropriations for the Casino Gaming Fund and Wheel Tax Revenue Fund? Seeing none, Madam Clerk Treasurer, roll call.
Mr. Span,
No.
Mr. Hardaway,
Yep.
Mr. Minchuk,
Yes.
Mrs. Uzelak,
Yes.
Mr. Pettit,
Yes.
Mr. White,
No.
Mr. Bella,
Yes.
5
to 2.
yes. 5 in favor, 2 noes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on tonight to a variety of resolutions. We have a lot of transfers of funds here for year end. Resolution 22-77. It is a transfer of funds in the Economic Development Department. Decrease is $316. The increase is the same. The net effect is 0.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mr. Hardaway for approval of Resolution 22-77. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to Resolution 22-78. It's another transfer of funds within the budget of the general fund. You can see there it's coming out of town council travel, town managers travel, office supplies, and the increase is going into gasoline, which is what Trista referred to earlier.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hardaway, second by Mr. Pettit for approval. The total transfer is $957.53, and that net effect is 0. Questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Moving on tonight to Resolution 22-79. Again, another transfer in our general fund, transferring monies from the general fund workman's comp of $7,500 decrease and going into general fund PERF, which is the Public Employees Retirement Fund of $7,500. The net effect is 0.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mr. Hardaway for approval of Resolution 22-79. Bless you. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Mr. White?
Is this from the Human Resources Office, actually?
No, this is from the, what do you mean? Which,
Well, I just see within the general fund, and it's got Human Resources in parentheses.
This is 2279. for
we're on
workman's
22-79 resolution. It is not part of the Human Resource Fund.
Okay, I apologize.
Are you looking at the resolution, Leonard, or just the agenda?
I was looking at the agenda, 2280, actually, I had flipped it over.
Okay, sir.
Yeah,
Are you set?
I'm good.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. That motion carries. Resolution 22-80, again, a transfer of funds from the General HR Administration Secretary, $1,000 decrease. Increase is going into HR office supplies, HR other supplies, and HR copier lease. The increase is $1,000, net effect is 0.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mrs. Uselak for approval. Questions or comments? Mr. White?
No
All in
question.
favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries. Moving on tonight to Resolution 22-81. There's a resolution of the Town of Merrillville, Lake County, Indiana, encumbering monies of the 2022 budget into the 2023 year.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Minchuk, second by Mr. Pettit for approval. This one's a bit larger. It's the Merrillville Territory, Fire Territory, Fire Department Training Supplies. It's to be a $75,000 encumberment for Scott Steel Services and a cumulative fire equipment clothing fund for Mac Queen Equipment in the amount of $35,915. Discussion?
Motion to approve.
We already have a motion, but thank you, Mr. Span.
All right.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Moving on to Resolution 22-81. This is a resolution that Mr. Pettit referred to earlier. Will the petitioner please come up to the podium in case we have any questions?
It's actually 82, Mr. President.
This resolution 2282.
Yes, sorry, 2282. Thank you, gentlemen. This is for 86 Place Partners LLC. It's for the construction of 4 approximately 8,000 square foot buildings for anticipated use for light industrial warehouse, mixed-use purposes at the property at 1503, 1513, 1553, and 1573 86th Place. Questions or comments for the petitioner?
I'll make a motion to approve, Mr. President, for
Thank you.
discussion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mr. Minchuk.
Comment from the, this is in my ward, and the redevelopment commission looked at this. This is a 10-year abatement on the Indiana Code graduating scale. The petitioner, in my humble opinion, has an excellent track record with the town. He was able to construct and keep a minority business in town, My Elk Cosmetics, immediately to the south of this property. He's also built 2 other buildings north of there, which Mael is leasing. He also built Superior Products. He's built buildings in Ward 5 on Taney Place. Al Bartley, ABCO Contractors, has an excellent reputation. He has agreed, Mr. President, since he's receiving, if he receives this abatement, that he will do either a PLA or union construction jobs for this site. And Al knows very well, I look out my bedroom window and I see these properties every day, Al, so you know I'm going to be watching you, just like the first 2 that turned out great.
Any other discussion? Any questions for the petitioner?
Yes, I was just,
Mr. White?
yes, I was just wondering, how much is this tax abatement over the 10-year period?
That's probably a question for Mr. Reardon.
The estimated assessed value from this project is $133,000. And if you take 3% of that as a tax, that's what the annual tax savings would represent. That's estimated. We won't know with certainty until the project's finished and the township assessor has finished their work.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Anything to add?
We did subdivide this from 1 lot into 4 lots. So over the long term, it's going to increase the tax value of what
Sure.
of what you originally got.
Absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate you, clarifying that, because the only issue I had was when I don't know what a price tag is on something, then I just want to find out. And I think. Right. No, so he clarified that for us as well, so thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Congratulations. Moving on to Resolution 22-84. It's a resolution of the Town of Merrillville encumbering monies from the 2022 budget into the 2023 year.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mr. Hardaway. I do have a question on this for Clerk Treasurer. The encumbering $9,300 for professional services, and then it notates the law office of John R. Cantrell. Is that money going to be earmarked just for that person, or is it just for any?
He is the attorney that is representing me in the lawsuit as a respondent in the lawsuit that Judge Velasco has brought against the town and my office.
Okay.
So, yes, it would be for him. I've
And-
already paid the other legal bills.
This is the right amount that's in that fund right now, Kelly?
That's what's left in the fund, and it may be more than that, I don't know, but that's what's left. So it's being encumbered. He's been in a murder trial, and now he's sick with the flu, so we haven't gotten the full invoice yet. So we're encumbering the entire amount, because it may be larger.
Any other discussion on this resolution? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. The motion carries. Moving on to Resolution 22-86. It's It's a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Merrillville approving a discount request from the Merrillville Community School Corporation.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mrs. Uselak for approval of Resolution 22-86. Mr. Reardon, what are we doing with this?
The redevelopment commission this is companion to action taken by the redevelopment commission earlier. The council might remember that we've been in discussion with the school corporation for some time, and this is a continuation of a partnership the town has had with the school corporation, and the dollars that are at issue are having to do with the school plan attached to the resolution is a estimated project schedule. The school corporation is undertaking a very aggressive facilities renovation rehabilitation project. Asked the town to consider waiving, rescinding, modifying the fees, and after a lot of discussion with the school corp as well, the recommendation from staff was to decrease the building portion of the fee, which is the lion's share of any fee, by 50%. And the consensus is that we go forward and support it.
Very good. Thank you, Pat.
Mr. President?
Mr. White?
Yeah, so here's how I'm looking at it. Pat, do you know how much we're giving them with the 50% reduction in fees?
I don't know. We talked about that before. That was one of your questions before. We won't know until they come in with an actual project. I do know, and I don't have that copy here, I distributed a copy of a permit that was presented to us before. I see, if I recognize it, Councilman Pettit has that.
Yeah, we have it.
It's in your pack, yeah. You have the resolution.
And if you isolated on the building portion, you would see what that represents.
Okay, here's my question again. If we're gonna give them this 50% tax break, not a tax break, but a 50% discount, and then we're giving them $400,000 a year, I just want to know what that total looks like.
Well, we could total them up each time they come to us, so they're going to come to us with the same request each time. You know, so we'll have the figures.
Okay, no more questions.
Any other discussion by the council? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Moving on to Resolution 22-87. It's a resolution of the Town of Merrillville authorizing for execution of NDOT agreements.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pettit, second by Mr. Minchuk for approval. This authorizes the Town Council President to sign NDOT documents, streamlining the process to get our NDOT projects going. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same motion, or opposed, same sign? Excuse me. All right, that carries. Resolution 22-88 is a motion to rescind the Resolution 22-71.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hardaway, second by Mr. Pettit. So Pat, are we correcting something here that happened, I think, a couple meetings ago? What's this about?
Yes, it did, and I'm going to call on Trista to further elaborate.
Trista.
2271, authorized to transfer from the CCD fund to the general fund.
It's a nice pen. I'm gonna sell it.
It was not the best practice to transfer money across those funds. Instead, the bill that was the reason for the transfer should have simply been paid from the CCD fund. It was budgeted in the CCD fund that way originally. It really just, not only was it not best practice, it didn't even need to be happening that way. So
Thank you, Tristan. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the American Rescue Plan, the AP voucher register summary for ARP purchases for December 13th. I believe the amount is $185,927.08.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hardaway, second by Mr. Minchuk. Discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Mr. White.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, because I did have some conversations with Pat. When we do things, I need to have a clear understanding. That way I won't make mistakes when I say things. So is there a way that I can find out where the ARP money, what communities got the most of the money or the less of the money?
Say that again?
No, I said, I was asking that when I had asked Pat to give me some information in the terms of when we could see where the ARP money went to per ward, like on a pie chart or something of that nature. I just want to see where those dollars are going, because I'm not at all those meetings that you guys have.
You know you're welcome to attend all those meetings, right? Okay.
Get with Pat, get with Kiana, have her come up with a pie chart, or get with Trista and her group, we'll come up with something.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. We have no BZA or large gathering permits, so is there any old business before us?
In the bag.
Yes, Mr. President.
Mr. White.
All right.
Actually, I'll retract that. I'll come on to new business when it comes up.
Well, then go ahead, new business.
Okay. Yes, Mr. President, going back to the ordinance, and I just, the ordinance is also our bylaws of the governors, right? So I got about like 10 pages here of things that I think that, according to our ordinances, we should be doing, and if we're not going to follow this, then I just want to know, is this going to be current?
Councilman White, you have my telephone number. Call me at any time with any question. I'll be glad to answer them for you.
Okay, I'll call you.
Great.
Thank you.
I look forward to it.
You say unfortunately?
I look forward to it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other new business before us? Hearing none, open to the public. Please approach the podium, state your name and address, and we allow 3 minutes for public comment.
Leonard, this is mine.
My name is Joe.
All right, thanks.
First of all, I say, Mr. Hartman, thank you for finally put up here with me.
I can hear you.
I say, I want to thank you for finally putting a foot on Gary's neck positive sanitation.
No problem.
Caused me to move out of that district versus south.
Thank you.
I couldn't go with that problem. Well, two things I did want to speak on is the residential ordinance. We got a lot of people moving into Merrillville that are not changing their license plate and not registering here. A couple of weeks ago, my car was hit by someone. We did get a license plate number. Went, reported to the police department. They did an investigation. Come to find out the person didn't live in the house anymore, but was renting the house out. Come to find out he was a resident of the city of the town of Merrillville for 2 years. We need to do something about these people, not just Illinois plates. I know everybody don't say Illinois plates. There are a lot of Indiana plates in Merrillville where people are not changing their addresses on their plates in their home. And it was convenient to me. The second thing I wanted to speak on, I understand we are low on police, but from 53rd, 61st South, it done turned to a racetrack. We have had a number of fatalities in between 53rd to 61st when people just come flying out of here like it's a racetrack. Right there at the corner of 54th, where you had a place that sells shrimp. There's no parking sign there. People go in there, they park their car there, you coming down the street, they open their door right out in the middle of traffic. You blow your horn at them, they blow their finger at you. We need to do something about that section, because if not, we're still gonna have fatalities and the people still gonna have this town like they're crazy.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Joe.
Mr. President, if I might speak to this.
Sure, Joe.
He came before the BZA regarding his petition. The petition itself was taken under advisement, set into December. If we don't have a meeting in December, then to January.
Okay.
So it's currently under review.
So he'll be notified, right?
He'll be notified by Ms. Shine when he's supposed to come back. I think there were some considerations regarding his petition and regarding his use on the property. He's got a main use right now, and he wants like a secondary use on the property.
I'd like to say a word. Yeah, I know this young man, I know his dad, I've worked with him for about 30 years. I appreciate him coming to town and asking. Appreciate you. Come back. I'll see if I can get some of the constituents to help you out.
Well, I just wanted to show you guys the improvements I made on the building versus before I took over the building.
Yeah, we'll actually do that when you come back in front of the proper board.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right, well, thank you.
we'll be in touch. Yep. Thank you.
Can I give him my card?
Sure, Don, absolutely. Hi.
I'm Ernestine Barnes from Vesta Luxury Apartments with Change from residents of Merrillville Lake. I'm here tonight along with some of the members, tenants that is residents there, an update. I believe we brought about the water bill, and we also brought about increase of the rent. I remember the last time we was here, it was supposed to be, Sheila was supposed to reschedule an appointment for you and to
Right.
come out.
Right.
I have not received a call, neither have anyone told me y'all was gonna come. So, that was that. We also was talking about security. Last time I was here, there was supposed to be, some type of policemen were coming in every now and then. We haven't seen that.
Costa, have we been driving through there, Costa?
I'll have to check the logs. I
Okay.
believe they were doing, it was supposed to be assigned as an extra patrol.
Yeah, they're not gonna just sit there though, so it's not like you're gonna, see them sitting there all day long, you know what I mean?
No, but we have people who work different hours that we have told them to look out for because of those time spans. It's very dangerous, so.
That's 65th?
They haven't, no, this is right by,
That's 80.
GFS, right down GFS.
Grant Street.
Grant Street. We also been having problems also with, like I said, the increase, and they also, have shot the rent up so high. And the rent is so high where we don't even know how they determine those fees. Okay, and they know seniors there supposed to be 55 and up. There's some people there that's not 55 and up, and there's also children there. So we have some great concerns there that before we even try to even take it any further, we just want to make sure that we have absorbed all of our avenues here, and that nothing that y'all could do. We don't want to keep wasting our time. If there's nothing that you guys can do, or nothing that you can direct us to, then we have to find other avenues in order to.
Yeah, I'll let Mr. Svetnov speak to that. I don't think we can govern rent figures or anything, right, Joe?
No, we can't govern rent figures, and we can't govern the 55 and older community itself. Those are strictly landlord-tenant issues that you'll have to take up directly with the landlord. I know before we try to work out some issues with your group of tenants in that place in the old ownership, and we're successful in doing some things. It sounds like it's getting to a situation, though, that the town has basically kind of exhausted all its remedies. I know we've tried to, and Costa's gonna check into that with the increased police presence within the community itself. But at this time, it sounds like that we've exhausted our kind of remedies to help you, so you may just have to go ahead and help yourself.
We did have the fire inspector go in and check everything. The fire inspector was there, checked the elevators, the fire extinguishers, that sort of thing, and he came back with a report for us. So that's been done, and he says that the buildings are safe. So,
Well, that wasn't the problem. The increase is when people are moving, they're
Right.
charging them outrageous prices For an example, when they leave, they take the carpet up, but they charge them for the carpet. Things like that. I mean, it's getting really ridiculous, getting outrageous. But if that's what you're saying, we exalted our avenues here, we understand we just have to take it on what's legal or even, you know, I understand. So,
I'm so disappointed because
Let's see,
the thing is.
William, we helped,
People come in here, can I finish?
Sure.
You want to shut up?
No, go ahead.
Let me know.
Go ahead, sir.
The reason I'm coming, we're asking, was there an agreement made that they're taking away senior citizens? If for 55 and over, now it's not that, because there's children running around there, and it seems like everybody turning their back on them. With the rent going up, was there an agreement made that we're taking away the 55 and you can do what you want to? Is that a situation?
Yeah, I can't answer that. I'm not an attorney, Joe. I don't know.
I don't know if the 55 and older designation was taken away or not. That may be a situation, again, with the landlord itself, if they decided to go ahead and alter the community status. I'm not positive. I think that's a question for you to pose to them directly, the management company or the ownership itself.
We try to, and nobody wants to hear us. So therefore, before I go beyond, I want to make sure I take the right step. And this is the step here, because they'll come back and say, did you? And I want to say, yes, and this is the date that we did it. So we marking everything that we do. We definitely keep a note. So when people say, did you? We can say, yes, here's the date. And then another thing, and I'm going to sit down. You wish? I see that in Chicago, how they change the ward so that these people can get votes over here.
Absolutely.
Are we gonna be like that? Are we gonna become a situation where, oh, we can do it here, they do that, we can do it here? Is this gonna become a cattle situation? Is this town supposed to grow? Or are we supposed to be like animals?
So, Mr. Williams, where do you live? Are you living in the apartment complex at Vita?
I'm still living there.
Okay, well, you're in Ward 5. You're not in Ward 7. And so your precinct hasn't, right.
I got excited because when they called and said to me about what's happening, and and I have to take all this in, I have to listen, and I tell them, I just got out of the hospital. Well, Mr. Wynn, we need to talk to somebody. Okay, I'll listen. I listen to them. And then I said, okay, when I get better, I'll go to my right-hand person, and we'll talk about it, and that's what we're doing. Like I told her, if we can't get out in here, there's other avenues. I know people that are, and I'm not bragging, I know people that higher than higher. And they would take me and listen to what I have to say, and they would do something. But I want to come here first, to give you people an opportunity. And if you can't do nothing, say, we're sorry, and I'll go beyond.
Well, we're sorry. The things we helped you with before was things that the town could control, right? You're not in the right place to get the kind of help. We've advised that the residents should get an attorney many times.
Mr. President.
Mr. White, 1 second.
Don't speak the truth, they lie to you. It's just like, I can't believe that so many people just like to lie to you and try to she didn't have it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Seems as if Councilman White has an issue with the redistricting based on the person who is in running. So we're redistricting Ward 7 based on someone who has already come out to be elected. Do I understand that correctly? That will, it just seems a little bit weird. I want clarification.
No, we're redistricting to get population parity between all 7 districts. That's what we're doing and why we're doing it.
I understand that.
Okay.
I'm trying to understand Councilman White. He seems to have a complaint. I'm trying to understand what that complaint is.
Well, you have to talk to, he was very eloquent when he talked about it, so I don't know what to tell you, Brian.
Brian,
Maybe you could talk to him after the meeting, so.
well, it's still a public portion, can I?
Well,
Yeah, Brian, only thing I was saying is that I thought it was inappropriate for how they did it. We had 5 maps, and all of a sudden now we got 6 maps. That's, the 6th map is the one that threw me. So 5 out of 6 say that you shouldn't do it, but then the 6th map say you should do it. But the fact is, I didn't get an opportunity to even look at it or comment on it. So maybe, are we going to do that at the second reading? Or is,
do you have a map to present? Because, you know, you
Well,
guys are saying that this is my job to redistrict. It's not. It's not the town council president's job to redistrict the town, okay? Everyone's had a full year to talk about this. It's something, we have a deadline. So I reached out for help to get it done. And that's where we are. That's what happened.
I didn't see it that way, but
Well,
you said.
anybody could have done it. Anybody could have talked about it. Anybody could
no
have
clue.
presented something.
Only thing, I
Brian, go
didn't
ahead.
have a
We're cutting
clue.
into your time, sir. We never shared any names with the person working on the maps, so.
I can give you that information, and I can give you the information that Mr. Bell is asked to put in that ward, if that's what you need.
So the thing is, it's just as political to move somebody out of a district for you, to help you, than it is to leave somebody there where they already live now, Leonard. So either way, you know, I don't know what you're trying to
I don't need
say.
help to- you know,
Well, then what are you worried about? Then why is this even an issue?
It's not a worry, it's about being
Okay.
right, you know,
We
process.
did it right. We left people alone where they lived, including all 7 council members. You could have ended up in Don's ward. Very
Dang,
easy,
Don.
very easily, right across the street. And we were
Absol-
very conscious about
Absolutely,
that.
and then you could have ended up in Sean's ward, which is right next to yours. But you
Absolutely.
made sure that didn't happen though,
But
right?
see, well, yeah, we did, because we
that's all I'm
told
saying,
her
bro.
it's not popular to put 2 councilmen in the same district.
It happened, as Rick said, it happened 10 years ago. When the
Happened to
previous
me.
redistricting went through, and I'll name names, Rick and Joe Shudick got put in the same ward.
Yep.
And Rick, and I worked for Rick for 3 years, and Joe. And you guys got stuck together. You were, I hate to say, you were the biggest man to step aside, and Joe ran in Ward 5, right?
That's correct.
He was in Ward 3, where Jeff's at now. And Joe's over in Independence Hill, 3rd Edition. And they meandered that line to put you both in the same ward. I remember that vividly.
What'd you call the line? What phrase?
They meandered the line so that they put both him and Rick in the same ward. Gerrymander,
So,
meander,
Mr.
however
White,
you.
the point is, I know how that feels when it happens to somebody.
No, I
I didn't want to move any current councilman
But here's
or
what
any
I-
current person who said, yeah, I'm going to run.
Here's what I want to say.
And
Rick.
announce.
If you wouldn't have said anything, it wouldn't have been a problem at all.
I don't see it as a problem now, so, you know, you want to make a political issue out of something, that's your prerogative. We tried to split up the town as fair as possible, and we did that.
I don't feel that way.
Anything else, Brian, to add? Yeah, that's what we did, yeah. And that's what I read into the record, and there's a photocopy of that up on the podium for anyone who here wants to see it.
But that's of course a larger thing. One last thing that I want to point out is that longtime councilwoman Aaron passed away recently, and the town of Merrillville should at least present that information and, you know, have a moment of silence for Chris, because she served our community quite well.
Yeah. Any other public comment?
We have a public health crisis in this country in terms of health, with COVID still going on, with RSV and all the flus going on, and with mental health issues. And so I am asking $100 out there to help people buy health insurance through the health insurance marketplace. You will hear people say, I don't want Obamacare, and at the same time, have insurance through the health insurance marketplace. They are the same thing. So I am begging this community, people that you know, let's get people insured. We have a vehicle out here to do it. We have a federal administration that is behind it, and particularly from a mental health standpoint, this insurance will help with mental health issues. So I am begging that people talk to people and help get them insured. Thank you.
Great point, thank you. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Trista, can you come here for a minute?